So this is how it's going to work. So those of you that have a bag of Lego bricks in front of you, you're going to have the best experience because the next 58 minutes were designed for that. The rest of you, yeah, thank you. I was a little early, but you're good. She was yawning. The rest of you is going to have a different experience, but just try and be present. I think that's about it, right? When I do these sessions, like not presenting at a conference, but do it actually with my clients, I do go by these conditions for insight. Now, people call them ground rules or house rules and this or that and what have you. These would be my conditions for insight when I do something. Be present. That is like when we're in a room, like in this room. Let's be in this room, not in a million different places, because then we should go there. Contribute, right? We are here to share with each other, listen for understanding, connect ideas, and turn off your mobile phones. It's said in a sort of slightly longer sentence, but that's what it means. People immediately grabbing their phones and photographing that. Excellent rule. Let's tweet it. I'm not going to be really strict about this today, but when I do work with my clients, I am. And it struck me this morning when Cohen was speaking that I don't think the issue is the 40 watts. I think the issue is we're trying to split the 40 watts on 100 different things. Right? That's the issue. We have an amazing brain with untapped potential. We're just messing with it. We cannot multitask. Not any of us. And that is independent of gender. And I'm saying this looking at no particular persons in the room. Right? It also doesn't matter which generation you're in. It also doesn't matter how often you've done it. Our brains cannot do it. We form less memories when we try to do this, and we do not get insights. And if we are in this innovation stuff, space, area, domain, insights are not such a bad thing. So the issue in my mind is not the 40 watts, it's splitting them on 100 different things at the same time. All right, this is, by the way, what I'm going to talk about. Or actually, I'm not going to talk much about it. It's the name of what we're going to be spending an hour on now. And breaking habitual patterns of thinking is this notion that Kuhn also spoke about, that we are great at thinking in schemas. We are great at seeing the patterns that we know. This kept us alive on the savannah, because if we saw a pattern that looked like a tiger or a lion or a rhino running towards us, we didn't want to break our habitual pattern of thinking. We wanted to run to the closest or the nearest tree, right? But now we need to break those, and we need to spend the 40 watts in a smarter way. So this is basically what's going to happen most of the remaining time. So if you're not up for that, there are other tracks. This is the plan, right? And you can divide the number of points by minutes, and you can sort of recognize that we're busy, right? This is the welcome part. Then the chunk of time, the biggest chunk of time is right here, is the hands-on. So I'll talk a little bit about the method. We'll go hands-on. And then we don't have time for this, and I'll see you at the break. Good. All right. In short, the Lego Serious Play method, which is the correct way of saying this, is a facilitated meeting, dialogue, and problem-solving technique. So it's not about the Lego bricks. You can use Lego bricks in a million different ways, right? In a million different ways. It doesn't matter how old you are or young you are. That's got nothing to do with Lego Serious Play. It's a particular way of using the Lego brick, right? So that's what it is. It's facilitated, and it does stuff. And it's delivered by a community. We heard about communities earlier, those of us that were in this room, but this is a different community, but a community of people that have been trained in this. Okay? So that's sort of the really quick version. As you can see by my face, it's really, really serious and very, very difficult. And I've done this forever and ever, as far as I remember. So a technique, a method, a language without content. That's the whole thing. It's purely a language. You can use it to talk about anything you want to, as long as there isn't one obvious or one right answer. Then this works. Okay. It tends to break 20-80 meetings. I don't know if you know of that concept. But a 2080 meeting is something akin to what we have now. Actually, what we have now is a 199 meeting. It's when 1% of the meeting spends 90% of the time, right? So what we are having now is the kind of meeting which is a waste of your potential. It's an absolutely waste of your knowledge, right? Absolutely. Today's okay because you probably came to hear some of this stuff, but most meetings are roughly like this, right? Someone has a, bear with me, if not a mic, then at least they have a marker in their hand, and then they control the meeting. Right? And this is really bad if you're trying to solve something together where we make the most of all the knowledge that's present. And most people, 5 to 10 minutes into such a meeting, sit a bit like you, or a bit like you with the phone, right? They're kind of there, but they're not really. You're here. I can tell you're here. That's why I dared make the joke, right? Because otherwise you wouldn't have heard me. No, but the thing is, we kind of like, we have to be in the room, but at the same time, we're not really, this is not really important because we heard him say this a million times, so we're checking our mails and Instagramming and Snapchatting, whatever it's called. There's no reason to sit there then. So when you want to break these, right? Create a 100-100 meeting where everybody's contributing to 100% of the potential, 100% of their time. Right? With the way we're organized now and with all this smart, whatever this technology is called, there's no reason to meet unless we really want to meet. Right? We can do Skypes and virtual meetings and holograms and what have you. So when we meet, let's meet. And then when people want to lead to unlock. So anyway, these 3 things were stuff we were looking at. When we've done this for 16 years, we were looking back at this, and we were wondering, why does this exist? Because as you will know in 2 minutes and 45 seconds, this is really binary and tactile. So we were thinking, this thing that was developed in 2001, why is it still here now? Back then, MySpace was an emerging thing. Right? You probably don't even know what MySpace is, most of you, I can tell. Right? So we were going like, why is it still here? And it was breaking that 2080, leading to unlock, people realizing that I may be the leader or the manager, but I am here to lead to unlock the knowledge in the room, so in each person, the understanding of the system that we are part of, and the connection between purposes of people and the organization. And then breaking habitual thinking. So those were the needs we realized, hey, that's why this is still around. OK. I'm done talking. Now what's going to happen is that we're going to go hands-on, or at least 30 of us are going to go hands-on. And when you start a workshop, you do a couple of exercises. And those are the ones I'm going to take you through. So in an actual workshop, every single person in the room has Lego bricks. And they have their own little bag in front of them. And then you always start a workshop with the exercises I'm going to give to you now. So this is how a workshop always starts. The rest is customized. We start with this because this is a way you need to learn this language before you start using it. Right? That's why you start with these exercises. So, hey, the opening of a workshop. Sorry, guys, I don't want you to see that right now. I remember that as being sort of blank when I turned the slide. Now, what I would like you to do, though, is open the bag of bricks you have. And you get to keep these bricks, by the way, so don't mix them up with the neighbor's bricks. It's your bricks. And the rest of you can just look on, because this is individual. I'm so sorry. There's nothing for you to do other than to look at other people and be impressed by their amazing cognitive powers. All right, guys, here's the quick thing. All the plastic you have in front of you, right? And you have, I think, 37 elements here. We'll call them Lego bricks. It doesn't matter what the color is, or the shape, or the form, or the taste, or any of all this. These are all Lego bricks. Does not matter if they are round and transparent or square. They fit. So if you come across 2 Lego bricks that do not fit during this session, you shout tech support. All right, just really quickly from you guys. Who in here has played with Lego bricks within the last week? He says, checking his watch. That's weird. OK, keep your hands up. Last month? This year? Decade? Life? All right. In some areas of the world, we then say previous life. all right, this makes you reasonably normal as sort of as a group. Now, the challenge I want to give you individually, those of you with bricks, is to build a tower. A tower. Simply a tower. Okay? Now, well, simply. I've understood from the front end of innovation that this is a highly intelligent group, so I'm going to give you rules. I would like you to build a tower as tall as you possibly can without stealing bricks. And I would like you to put a minifigure on top of the tower. Minifigure. Whether you give him or her a sort of standard issue head or a sort of more different shaped head, that's completely up to you. But I'm going to give you 4 minutes to build a tower as tall as you possibly can with a minifigure on top of the tower, no stealing of bricks, and I'm going to give you 4 minutes for it. 4 minutes. So hands on bricks, let's see 30 towers really fast.
Stable enough.
Okay, guys, we're running out of time. Okay, guys, so it always starts like this. Now, the key learning point, the key thing we want people to take in from this exercise. You can't fight with this. I don't know why I'm talking, right? So the key learning point here, there's a couple of them, right? One of them is, if you look around these towers, you will see that they're all very, very different. Right? You'll also notice that they all have a minifigure on top. Every single person had the exact same bricks. Because in a nutshell, that's how Lego Serious Play works. The facilitator asks a question. Everybody builds their answer. Every single answer is correct, but they never, ever look the same. Right? So for this little warm-up exercise, number one, that's the key learning. Today, you cannot be wrong. Whatever you answer is not going to look like any other answers, but it cannot be wrong today. And by the way, we can all build with Lego bricks. And that's the key thing you want people to take away from this. Okay? So that's how you get started. Oh, doesn't matter if I never played with Lego bricks, or if I'm a girl and I think Lego bricks are square, so they're probably for boys, and all of that. Does not matter. So that's how we begin. Now I'm going to give you a little bit the story about why it exists, because this particular unlocking of each person's potential was what the Lego owner looked for when this started inside Lego. Okay? So how many of you have children that you know of? Yeah, women tend to keep their arms up. Men go, yeah, well, I did travel a lot when I was young. So Lego is a family-owned company. It's based in Denmark, in the middle of absolutely nowhere. Currently owned by the third generation. And a few years back, the toy industry really became a competitive space, right? Because as you know, if you have kids, kids today play differently from what we did when we were children, right? I have 2 boys, and I know for sure, I mean, when the oldest, he's 14, when he was 4, he would be on Google Earth. And I was not on Google Earth when I was 4. So children play differently. And this whole change in the competitive landscape made the owner of Lego want to develop a different way of doing strategies. So it's an internal need and a relatively visionary owner, right? So he said, I want something different. He also had the experience that whenever consultants came into Lego to help develop their strategies, they never really considered the uniqueness of his company. And if you're half a pig, half a tiger, you are somewhat different from the other animals in the forest. So he felt that they needed to sort of make it unique for the company. And he wanted a strategy that really wasn't complicated, right? That people could execute from the beginning. So these were sort of the needs or wants he had, what he desired for the process. Then he had this idea, and we heard that also, I think, from it was Emil this morning, who said nobody wants to be average, right? And the owner of Lego had this idea that people, they go to work to do well. I mean, everybody wants to excel. Everybody has the power to do it, and they wake up in the morning wanting to do it. Then when it doesn't happen, whether it's with innovation or strategy or in the canteen for that matter, it's because we give them the wrong tools. Right? So that led to the idea of developing this different strategy process. So he connected with a couple of professors who at that time were in Switzerland. One was an American and one was a Swede. And then they began like an internal process, or project, I should say, exploring this. And it was actually one of the professors who said, or asked him, that, so he says to the owner of Lego, so if you really believe that the Lego brick can do what you say it can do for children, like it's a language that unlocks potential, that it creates commitment and buy-in and learning and different answers. If you can do that for children, why can it not do it for adults? Why wouldn't it be able to do it for adults? So the penny drops and the angels sang and they could see the forest for the trees. And they realized, let's put the Lego brick inside the strategy making process. And then they developed Lego Serious Play. And I was part of the project here. And we were spun off and we were a separate company. And it sort of grew from there. But initially he was like, I want a different strategy process. I want it for my company. And then when he saw that it actually worked and it made a difference for him and his company and his employees, they really decided not only to spin it off, but to bring it out to the world, so to speak. And that's many, many years ago. Well, I think what we found out, sort of when we apply it, this group of people across the world, is that it's a great way of opening up the closets and seeing what's inside. It's a great way to put words to what's hard to talk about. Now, skeletons in the closet sound vaguely negative, but the point is, it's a great way to articulate things that are hard to otherwise put into words. Thank you. Who says it's time-space dependent, right? So just to give you that little bit of background, let's get back to the hands. I would like you to build one of these. So the towers are very nice, they were beautiful, they're amazing. Now, guys, I'd like those of you with bricks to choose one of these 6 and build the model exactly the way it looks there. And remember to shout text. Then I would say, excellent, well done, da da da, and praise you highly, of course, because the brain is not really, didn't evolve, or if you're religious, was not developed to handle information in two dimensions. So this is just info in 2D, right? Our brains really evolved or were designed to handle information in 3 dimensions, right? Building it with our hands. So this is the only time in a workshop you would actually follow instructions. Right? The good news are then, in general, I guess, that we are never ever in Serious Play building anything that looks like anything. Right? We are building stuff, and in that process, we give it a meaning. And we give it a meaning through the use of metaphors. Through the use of metaphors, right? Like in the previous presentation when they were talking about an orchestrator, right? I was talking about the penny dropping. I was talking about the angel singing. Whether it was the orchestrator or the penny dropping, you knew what she or I meant, right? Because we use metaphors all the time. That's a classic way of giving meaning to things. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask you guys, I'm going to give you 30 minutes. No, 30 minutes. 30 seconds. Yeah, 30 minutes. You could see them going like, no, you're not. I'm going to give you 1 minute then. I'm going to give you 1 minute to customize your model, to change your model, the one you've built, so that your model becomes a metaphor for what energizes you about your job. Yeah? You're going to get a minute to customize, to change your model, so that your model becomes a metaphor for what energizes you about your job. After 1 minute, those of you with a model is going to share the meaning with the other people at the table. Is that clear? Good. You have 1 minute. If you do not know what to do, start building. That's the best thing you can do for your brain. After 1 minute, I'll give you a chance to share. So first build, then share. 1 minute. You can add, you can take out, you can move around, you can customize it any way you want to. But you only have 50 seconds left. Ready? Ish. Serious Play is just like life. There is never enough time, and you will never be ready. So here's what's going to happen now. At each table, one after the other, you share your meaning of the model. Because in Lego Serious Play, everybody builds and everybody shares. Right? So at each table, please take a round where you share the metaphor or metaphors that you have created. Right? So it takes a volunteer to kick you off.
I guess I take things and I make them my own. In this case, I did exactly that. I gave my slug legs.
The best part of my job is helping the person who is just kind of doing the day-to-day figure out new, either traditional pathways or kind of new pathways with a little like staircase over here to solve problems to their success.
And we use a making, not telling. Because this is the notion of that stories is a great way of communicating, and it's all about making stories. And we make these stories to make sense of the current. We make these stories to share the pasts we've been part of. We make these stories to explore the futures we want to be in. We make stories to form identities, and we make stories to challenge identities. Stories can do all of this stuff. So in the final little building exercise that we're going to be doing today, I'm going to ask you to build a story, a model. So first, story and model is the same thing. So build a little model that explores the characteristics, right? The characteristics, the nature of something extreme. The thing I'm going to ask you to build is a model of the absolutely nightmare, the absolutely worst possible. Here it is, CEO. So I want you to build a model that captures their values, right? Her competencies, his skills. What is it that such a person would be absolutely excellent at? So the nightmare CEO, the one that will really kill innovation, right? If you do want it in PowerPoint, it's up there. So be extreme, exaggerate, right? Set your imagination free. Nightmare CEO, someone who really kills innovation. What would their qualities be? Passion, skills, competencies, values. And I'm going to give you only 5 minutes, not 6. That's too much. OK, hands on bricks, guys. You have 5 minutes. That's tricky. Yeah. Sit down. It needs to go a little bit on the side. That's why. OK, guys. That was 5 minutes. All right, so it's time to share again, OK? Now, hopefully it's reasonably clear that in this method, everybody builds and everybody shares in a normal setup when you have enough bags. The third little thing that is important is that when somebody has shared their story, right, you are more than welcome to ask them a question. But the weird thing is, in this method, you ask questions into the model. You ask about what you can see in the model. Because what's in the model is what the colleague wanted to share with you. What's in the model is the new knowledge they have created. So we are not asking anything outside the model. We're only asking about what we can literally see in the model. Is that reasonably clear? Let's take a round where you begin, where you share. It takes volunteers to begin. So start sharing the nightmare CEOs at the table. Sorry, say that again. You might not have heard it. So we create a space where it's OK not to have heard it because you can see what you haven't heard. And thirdly, because later we use thousands and thousands of bricks, so he might actually forget a small element of his model. Yes, it does mean that he has tailwind, right? So it's, for these 3 reasons. And well, the fourth one was it's the safe space. If you know you will never be challenged, but only the representation of your knowledge will be challenged, you feel really, really safe. But thank you for giving me the chance to share that. No, you can fiddle with the bricks. Fiddling with bricks is good. It's an amazing thing. Good for your brain. Anyway, guys, these 3 exercises would be how we start a workshop. A little bit less talking from the facilitator. I've been commenting a little bit more, giving you a little bit more background as to why we do it. But we will always start with these 3. For people to understand that they can build with Lego bricks. They cannot be wrong. Everybody builds, and everybody shares. There's no sitting on the fence, right? There's no sort of waiting this one out and seeing what people are saying before I talk, right? And the questions go into the model, which is weird. But it's a way of making it really, really safe. It means that you know that you won't be challenged, but only what you have built, so the representation of your knowledge, will be challenged. It's not about you, it's about it. So it can be very emotional, but never actually personal. So all of this gets established and more in the first 3 exercises. Right? It's almost like a practice run. Now, we wouldn't say that because then people don't take it serious, but that's actually what happens. And then the actual sort of workshop starts. And more bricks get introduced. Right? More bricks get introduced. You always start with an individual bag or box, because then people know they have what they need, and they can realize that I can do this. And it's not like that he's got all the cool stuff, and I have to make do with this. But then you bring in all these other bricks, and then they start creating these huge models, and as we call them, landscapes. These are from client sessions, right? So just to give you an idea of what might be going on. So they might be buildings like these things here, which are like, these are corporate identities, and they make sort of a whole little representation of the system they exist in with competitors and clients and what have you, right? They might actually be building the connections, the relations that exist in these landscapes in order to play out scenarios, in order to do all of these things. They don't necessarily make these every single time, but to give you an idea of what it looks like. This is an example of some guys sort of creating what we call a landscape, where they've built individual models and they're placing them in relation to each other to find certain patterns. Right? And all of this notion of asking the question and building in silence so that you can access what you don't know, without anyone disturbing or interrupting you, in our experience and with the hand-mind thing, helps break the schemas that as Kuhn called it, or helps break the habitual thinking. Right? By focusing the 40 watts, it's actually an immense power you have there. But it takes a space to do that. And in this case, and often it takes a medium. We chose Lego bricks. But you can imagine other things as well, right? But I'm here to talk about Lego bricks. Yeah. We're running a little bit out of time, but I wanted you to get this feeling of that, that there is a method here. It's not about the Lego bricks. You can't do Lego serious play without Lego bricks, but you can certainly have Lego bricks and not do Lego serious play. So we talk about that there is a core process, and you started to experience that here, this notion of that there's someone asking a question, there's a facilitator, there's an outsider, there's a neutral who really doesn't know the answer, who asks you a question in a relatively particular manner. And then everybody builds. Every single person makes an answer. That is always shared, and there's always questions to those models, either from the colleagues or from the facilitator, helping to explore deeper what is that knowledge in there. Because we know a lot of stuff we don't know we know. This core process is then applied in a set of techniques depending on what it is that the client or the group of users, what are they looking for, right? What's their need? Is it understanding the full system? Is it getting a shared understanding of our vision or whatever, the focus client or the new value proposition, or we heard a lot about business models later. Is that what they're looking for, which in our term is like creating a landscape of these elements, right? So then the facilitator applies it into that. So that's sort of the notion of these things. And then I have a million different slides, which we're not going to go through. The key thing here is that it's been done a million different places, and it doesn't really matter. Blah, 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 blah. And the idea is not for you to read it. The idea is for you to get a sense of that this, blind people, this is not for anyone, it's for everyone. It's not for anyone special, it's for every single person, right? We had it in a previous presentation in this room, this notion of that ideation or thinking is for a special group. The whole point here is that it's not. It's for every single one, because we all have an immense untapped potential. It's based on a bunch of different theories, and maybe that's one of the things that kind of maybe makes this work, is that it combined what Lego knew and know about how the brain works with what the two professors brought from the outside. Right? So there's lots sort of some good old classics like constructivism and constructionism, stuff about play and the flow theory, and then a lot of business school things. And it was kind of what Franz Johansson would call an intersection of these ideas, right? That actually created this thing initially for Lego. And that's the thing that for me is a little bit important. always to remember that this was never meant to be sold. Right? This was meant to be for Lego. And because it worked, and because the Lego owner is really, really rich and very, very value-driven, he decided to bring this out. And I do make a point about that he's really, really rich, because this is a really, really bad business for Lego. But they do it because it's part of changing how business is done. Now, the owner of Lego he's never seen the Lego brick as a toy. He's always seen it as a language through which kids speak. Right? First, they speak inside their head. Right? That's thinking, right? When the little cells up here fire and wire. And then they talk together. So when this got around and started to work in 2001, 2002, we just saw it as a language, or bringing that language into another group of people. Right? So when we launched this back in the days when the bricks were black and white, when this was launched, we never really thought about bringing more play to organizations. But the whole idea was to bring more play to organizations. Right? And really intentionally using the power of play. That's an amazing book, by the way. It's mine. The resources, if you want to read more about this, guys, because it's delivered by a global community, but lots and lots of people. Lego actually has a little bit about it on their own website. Lego they use it internally, right? But Lego doesn't know much about Lego Serious Play any longer, because the entire initial team has left Lego. But they still have something about it. There is a community site there, and we have the worst website in the absolute entire world. That's why I put it on number 3. What you might find interesting, if you're a little bit so inclined to read qualitative research, is that in the early days, the owner of Lego and the foundation set up something called the Imagination Lab. And they did a bunch of papers about why it works. So they didn't develop Lego Serious Play. They were trained in it as a bunch of researchers. And then they went into companies and delivered it and collected data and did some papers on them. And some of them are really interesting, and some of them are like different. But they're for free, so you can download them and you can read them and go like, "Ooh, this was cool," or "Oh no." Right? So that's the key thing. And I'm on Twitter, like everybody else. That leaves us with 5 minutes for any possible questions. 1, 2. Let's start 3.
Does Lego still use this in their strategy?
Not in their strategy any longer, to my knowledge at least. They use it internally for different. They've used it in projects. They've used it in many of the reorganizational sort of things. They have used it in working on their what is that called? Work climate culture thing. What else? I can't remember anything else right now. And Lego is a really difficult client. Because when you do serious play, you guys are different. You decided to come here and blah, blah, blah. But when you bring Lego bricks into most organizations and they're facing a merger or a reorganization or a new business model, they look at these and they look at toys. They see toys, sorry. Right? And Lego is even worse when it comes to that. But you sit with a bunch of people and look at that and they go, oh, they have the age group that this was actually made for initially. They know the color coding of that brick. They know exactly what it is, right? So they're even more difficult.
Can you give an example of, I know you want to give examples, but like an example of a question that you might do if you were actually
Sure. I might actually have some. Let's just see, otherwise I don't normally use slides, by the way. Let's see. No, I actually have something here. Because I kept some from another presentation to give you an idea. Maybe I didn't, oh no. I brought a million backup slides, but maybe not one of those. Yeah, here's sort of it, right? This is a really complicated one. You sort of, the way you do it is, in this case, it's actually, for example, if you're doing it for a business model canvas. So you often just give a little bit of context, right? And then you scaffold them with a couple of things that they want to put into it. So this would be of a company that were building their key activities and key resources. What you're really striving for, and I might have an example more here, is that you try to articulate your question in such a way that they're not building what anything looks like. One of the key differences between using Lego bricks and using Lego Serious Play is that mostly when we use Lego bricks, we make the tangible visible. And Lego bricks are great for that. So it's not a question of good or bad. Lego Serious Play is mostly about making the intangible concrete. So you're building values, you're building needs, you're building not behaviors, needs, values, competences, skills, pain, dreams, all of the stuff that's hard to put into words. So intangible, you make it concrete, because by making it concrete, you can then manipulate it. You can move it around. It's like chunks of knowledge. You can start organizing it. You can start seeing the patterns in your market. Or if we're creating a shared value proposition, let's say that the guys from Connect or Front End of Innovation, they wanted us to build the value proposition of this conference, right? Then we would be building that value proposition. We probably would do a couple of other exercises first, because we never go directly for the target. So we might be building the pains. Maybe we'll be building the competences of the organization that we're in, right? Then we'll be building the pains and the needs of the participants. And then we will be building the value proposition that we think they should bring forth. Now, you would then all be building your value proposition. And that would be really mean, and you wouldn't be able to talk while you were building. So that we really got different answers. So you weren't interfering with each other's thinking. You would share that, and then you would sort of stand up, and you would push your model towards the center, and you would build a shared model of that value proposition. That's really, really hard and very emotional, and it might take some time. But all of a sudden, you would have a model that's truly and honestly shared. And everybody would be telling that same story. Every single piece would mean the same thing. That was actually a long answer to your question. Yeah, I can respect the one that one question I kind of had said yes to. Who was it that raised his hand? There was a third question. That was you, wasn't it? Yeah. Sorry. Was it clear? Did that answer your question, by the way? And 3 other questions on the way.
Okay, last question.
I guess from like a tactical perspective, if you're, as we were sharing our perspectives of this particular thing we were building, there's all these insights that you have, or all these emotions.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you tactically then take the idea of a group of 10 people, even in that
Yeah.
first thing you were showing before, and capture that to make it to bring it to the next step, right? Because you're in that session, and you're like, what do we do with all these bullet points?
All right. Well, how do we do this? Do we say that the session is over and I answer still, and you start walking out?
How about let's do housekeeping and then you can talk.
Yeah, okay. I will answer your question.